Good morning, everybody, and welcome to IGTV. This is production in New York City InfoGuard. We have with us today Kathy Braun, and Kathy kind of gives us the forensic side of the house, all right, the insider's look, all right, and she's going to be talking about the anatomy of the attack today, all right, opening the door, so to speak. So, Kathy, why don't you take it away?
Okay. Yes, this is more on the forensic side. And then basically, I want to break it up into two types of threats. You have the inside threat and the outside threat, meaning that you have people inside your infrastructure who want to use whatever tools and resources they can for their personal use, sometimes for financial gain, but for the most part, it's really a matter of convenience, really. There are a majority of that. The ways they can do it is known is social networking, shopping, browsing, because all these areas open up the door. Every time someone goes from inside the house and opens up the door and goes outside the house, as we know, it's a two-way street. So there's a few ways that this can happen too. You have multiple vehicles. Some of the more well-known ones from the out would be like a Zeus. Everyone knows about Zeus. There's multiple vehicles from there. A lot of that has to do with anything from emails, some of the old methods, e-cards, they're still using that. Of course, everyone's conducting business on Facebook now. As it's been mentioned before, I listened to the other speeches to reiterate, people do tend to use the same type of passwords on their home computer, whether they go to Facebook. So the credentials, when they call these credentials, it's fairly easy to get a lot of information. Um, Another one is would be the Monkif. Now the Monkif isn't as popular, yet it is fairly large. It isn't as successful as Zeus, and that's why it hasn't been getting the attention that it otherwise would. But it does basically the same thing. It can be found anywhere from newspapers globally to photo sites. Another type of threat, this would be the last one, not to make it too much, is tunneling. Tunneling has become popular too because it's the tools are free. And you can bypass firewalls, proxy walls, and you can do whatever you want. Whatever safety that they have or WebSense is catching, you're going to just go right through all of that. Um, so it's going to take care of it. Um, as far as tunneling, the risks involved, of course, is it's a two-way street. Um, if you can let out intellectual property as well as opening up the door for more viruses and Trojans of that nature. So, how to dodge the bullet with the outside threats. Trojans, let's say with Zeus, we'll focus on that specifically. Zeus is very good at changing its characteristics, so running an AV isn't necessarily going to be the end all be all. What they do is they pack it, which means basically they just put it in a wrapper. And so when the virus detection tries to find it, it can't see it. However, with the right tools, these variants can be tracked. What it comes down to is knowing what your tools are. Okay, as a first responder, there again, I always go with free tools as well as ones that are costly. There's sysinternals, which gives you a wide range of being able to see what processes are running. Um, you also have Mandiant and many other like it that can grab the memory for analysis because then you can actually see what it's trying to do at the time. Log files you're going to want to grab, and also you're also going to want to take a forensic image for the post-mortem. There's a lot of information that you can glean from there. For post-mortem, I know the tools that I prefer would be X-Ways or NCase. FTK is catching up the three big ones, as well as you're going to need unpackers because when they wrap them up, there's different ways they wrap them depending on the type of code in the platform. So, but you can unwrap them and then put them through something like IT Pro, which is a tool, it's reverse engineering. And actually you can then look through and see what registry entries, what they're trying to do. And that gives you a lot of information. So when it comes to analysis, whether it be live and post-mortem, um, First and foremost, the infrastructure should have good proxy logs. From this, you get exactly when the payload was attempted. It doesn't always actually succeed, but you can see what was attempted to be downloaded. It also will have URL, and even though I wouldn't rely on it, it will give you the name of an executable or disguise it as a JPEG or whatever. But that does give you a lot of information to start. There are areas on the hard drive that anyone would look at if they were going to approach the problem of finding out what happened and what it was doing, and if or not it was successful in this situation. There are standard places. As sophisticated and complicated as it is, there's also only so many places on a hard drive that can function. So temp directories, cookies. I found IP addresses in cookies. Running processes, there's a lot of information in there. And even in postmortem, there's registries and what you call prefetch. The prefetch basically just says, this is everything that was running. These are the executables. This is what was happening at the time. Another interesting area is the master fat table. And the master fat table is interesting because it's also a log. It's a database. It helps the operating system, but also keeps track of everything that's going on in the system. The really cool thing about master fat table is it has two sets of timestamps. One that can be altered by, with Stompit or by a smart hacker, but there's another set that it can't affect. So if for some reason you were thrown off track, the timestamps would change. If you use the master fat table, you can actually pinpoint the time because that can't be affected. There are many others. I don't want to go into two. I'm trying to keep it high level, but running a file signature search. Why would you do that? You would do that because they're going to change the name of the extensions. They're not going to call it so that you can actually find it. They're going to try to disguise it. So if you run a file signature search, you don't care about what it's called. You don't care about the extension is. It's going to look at the header, which is a series of characters, and that's going to determine what type of file it truly is. Keyword searches. Keyword searches don't sound sophisticated, but I have found an awful lot of information by using the information I have culled and finding what exactly is going on. Internet history. Where was the user? Even though the user could have been perfectly innocent, where were they when this incident occurred? And afterwards you would block that site. Hashing you can't use to necessarily find the malware, but what you can do is eliminate what you know is good, and that speeds up the process. If you have 50,000 files that you know are not affected, they are known good hashes, you can remove them from your analysis and you're definitely in a better spot. Again, with IDA Pro and other tools such as that, reverse engineering. You have to have a level of knowledge of programming language, but with these tools, you do not have to be an expert to at least gain some form of information from using them. So, in conclusion, okay, there's tools and there's tools. The point I would like to make is that there's not one tool to do this. Even with all your knowledge, you have to know what tool to use under what circumstance. That's why I'll name quite a few, but I would never say, oh, you absolutely have to use this. This is the right one. It depends on your platform, on what you're trying to accomplish. In this type of attack, you also have to take into consideration human elements. What were they doing? What were they trying to accomplish? What was their intent, both on the inside and the outside? Reasonable expectations. There are times, more than often than not, you can find what happened. There are times I must make a statement that people do have to rebuild the machine. You try to avoid that, and that's why you go through all these, because if you simply just say, oh, I'll just rebuild it, you have not solved the problem, and this will happen again. So you want to educate yourself, and you want to know how to remediate, and you want to know the best way to prevent it as best as possible. So basically, that's that's the best you can do. I mean, you have to take the right measures, and you have to know how to dodge the bullet as best as possible. Thank you.
Kathy, that was excellent. And you know, you did it. You did it just in 10 minutes, so it's terrific. That's what we wanted for everybody. You know, as we tell all of the speakers that come on here, you know, we try and keep these videos very short. All right, so that people can grab and go, so to speak. But if people really want to deep dive, you know, they do 1 day, 1 week courses on these things. So people, if they want to go further, you know, they can certainly do that. All right. Thanks. That was a terrific presentation today.
Thank you.